parasite that bleeds Africa, that bleeds the world, that bleeds Afghanistan, that bleeds the people of Yemen who are dying by the thousands even as we have this discussion. This is the basis of a Brexit. It can't stand together anymore because the host is rejecting the parasite, and it's creating crisis throughout Europe and throughout the imperialist world. I think it's necessary, brothers and sisters, to say that there has been a natural trajectory by African people for closer union. We know that we're talking about having this discussion in part because in 1884-85, Europeans sat at a table in Berlin, Germany, not a single African there, and carved up Africa into the territories that we now sometimes call countries and illogically refer to as nations. Africans didn't do that. It was Europe that did that. It was Europe and imperialism that required Africa to be divided so that the resources of Africa, both human and material, was true. We saw 100 years or so ago, Marcus Garvey organized the Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities Leagues that stretched across the globe. More than 11 million African people everywhere were connected to this. Africa for Africans, at home and abroad. That was the cry. Not Africans for Nigerians that didn't even exist until the British created it in 1915. And Flora Shaw, the mistress who would become the wife of Frederick Lugard, came up with the name nigger area. Not this false national consciousness that has been imposed on Africans around the world. So that when the Portuguese found shrimp on West Africa and then named it for the Portuguese word for shrimp, Cameroon, it is not true that they are shrimp despite the fact that the people call themselves Cameroonians today. It is a false national consciousness. The false national consciousness that created the American Negro, that created the Black Brit, the Afro-Swede. We are one Africa, one nation, and we must have closer union. But in order for that to happen, it has to be a revolutionary union. The Organization of African Union created on May 25th, 1963 in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, was part of an effort to circumvent efforts by Kwame Nkrumah to build a single union of African states. And instead, we come up with an Organization of African Union that codified.
Woo, woo. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, Chairman. Hold on, Chairman. Fire! 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 Peace and love, family. Welcome to another Truth to Power Talk with your sister, Dr. Maat. Thank you for joining another powerful discussion. And I have with me tonight another powerful guest, Chairman Omali. How are you, Chairman?
Uhuru, my dear sister, Dr. Maat, I'm quite well. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for having me. I really look forward to this discussion.
It's Chairman. I tell you, I mean, I felt like a little kid just waiting for this interview with you, Chairman. I mean, it's an honor to have you on the platform. Family, the clip you just saw was our chairman speaking he shared with me when we were offline that he was at Oxford University. Chairman, can you tell us what was going on? We saw that clip, that short clip circulating on Facebook, but could you tell us what was going on? Where were you? Why were you there?
Yeah, it was at Oxford University, which is in England. And they invited me to speak because they said that they recognized the significance to the whole question of the rights of African people and the question of socialism, the contribution made by the philosophy of African internationalism that I had created. And and the work that we do as a party. So they wanted me to come there, they said, to participate in a debate. It was an interesting debate. There were, as it's called, it wasn't really that much of a debate. There were 3 people on each side of the question. And the question was whether or not closer African Union was something that should be achieved. And there were opponents. One of the opponents on this question that was opposed to it was the former prime minister, or deputy prime minister of Zimbabwe. There was another person who had participated in some role in the African, in the United Nations, an African woman from the United States. And there was an African man that was supposed to be on the same side as I on this question, who was the former United States representative to the Organization of African, the former ambassador from the United States to the Organization of African Union. And he, after I spoke, he wanted to make a point that he was a very proud African American and that he, and an Anglophile. That was how he characterized himself. So even the people who were supposed to be on the same side of the question as I was on, obviously I was not on the same side of the question. So it was an interesting kind of debate. As I said, 3 people on each side. And according to how the judges, the judges were the people who were there in the audience, we won the debate. I won the debate 2-1. And so I wanted to do this because Oxford is the most prestigious university in the whole European colonial world. And I felt like it was important to be there for 2 reasons. One, Malcolm had spoken there some years ago. And I thought that was significant. And what it signified was Malcolm was killed several days after he left there. He had traveled throughout Africa, and on his way back to the United States, he stopped to Oxford to make that presentation. And according to one of the persons who escorted him, they asked him what he was going to do when he got back, and he said, "They're going to kill me." And of course, it was a matter of weeks that he was killed. I think it was December something that he spoke there, and then February the next year, he was killed. And he was there as for the same reason I think I was invited. This is a prestigious university where they train forces who are going to be neo-colonial powers representing Europe and Africa, and not just Africa, India and various other places around the world. That was the kind of audience that came from that university that was there. In fact, the person who I mentioned, who was had been the representative of the ambassador to the Organization of African Unity from America, had been an Oxford graduate himself. They train these guys. That's where they go for their training. And so that was how it looked. And I knew that they brought Malcolm there because something really important was happening in the struggle of African people at that time. Malcolm was playing a role in uniting Africans around the world. He was coming back from Africa and Europe when he came into there. And Malcolm had recently, not too long ago, left the Nation of Islam, and the civil rights movement itself was being challenged by new struggles that were emerging among the African working and poor people. And Malcolm represented something new. They knew he represented a new philosophy, something new. And that's why they brought him there. And that's why they brought me there, because of the same kinds of contradictions that's happened in this country. And we had a movement that had run into a dead end philosophically and what have you. And these guys, from their perspective, they want to have an opportunity to taste it, to see what it looks like, and to train their own forces to deal with. From my perspective, Oxford being the university that it is, I knew that being there would also give us an opportunity to go to a much larger audience. And there have been millions of people who have seen that presentation since that time.
Absolutely, Chairman. And I would like to get the full presentation if possible, because on social media, they circulate. And I guess if it's a full presentation, no one's circulating an hour clip.
It's not an hour. It's only 10 minutes, a little more than 10 minutes. It's only a 10-minute presentation.
The clip that went viral on social media was a 4-minute clip. But Chairman, please, if you could give me, get this the full presentation to me so that I can get that out to the people. But before we get started with tonight's discussion, family, I do want to take a moment to read a short bio of the chairman, Chairman Omali. It says from Chairman Omali of the African Socialist International and the African People's Socialist Party. From the day he tore down the racist mural from City Hall at St. Petersburg, Florida in 1966, Chairman Omali has never stopped fighting for the liberation for African people everywhere. In the heat of revolutionary struggle and during the years of prison for his political work, Chairman Omali developed the theory of African internationalism that understands the world through the eyes of the African working class. In 1968, Chairman Omali founded the Burning Spear newspaper, which is still published today. The chairman has authored numerous articles, pamphlets, and books. He has led countless campaigns in the name of the African working class, including the community control of housing initiative that won 22,000 votes in Oakland, California in 1984, and the campaign that freed Desi Woods, an African woman in prison for killing a white attempted rapist with his own gun. In 1996, the chairman mobilized a community fight back following the rebellion sparked by the police murder of 17-year-old Tyrone Lewis in St. Petersburg. Chairman Omali made reparation a household word with the International Tribunal on Reparations for African People, which was held in Brooklyn, New York in 1982, finding that African people are owed $4.1 trillion for stolen labor in the U.S. alone. The chairman founded the International People's Democratic Uhuru movement in 1991 as a revolutionary mass organization to defend the democratic rights of the African working class. The party also launched Black Star Industries, bringing all of the economic development institutions of the party under one umbrella, creating partnerships with community members. Today, Chairman Omali, as the leader of the African Socialist International, speaks to his growing base around the world and leads the worldwide movement for the liberation of Africa and African people everywhere. Again, thank you so much, Chairman, for being with us today. So the first thing I want to ask you, Chairman, is how did we get here? I know in the video clip, you mentioned the Berlin Conference, where the Europeans, again, you said they sat around the table, and what they did was they carved up Africa. They carved up Africa, and they went in and they took control of the resources in Africa. But Chairman, please just talk about how we got here. Why is Africa in its current state today? We know that Africa has all of the resources. People go there to get all of the resources, but it's a very, I guess, in terms of money, making money, it's an impoverished continent, and it's underdeveloped. And so can you explain how we got here, Chairman?
Yeah, I think that's really important because this is a new phenomenon for Africa in terms of this thing that we call underdevelopment. Because as you know, Africa was the center of world civilization for a while, and people would actually come as tourists to Africa just to ride up and down the Nile on boats to explore these wonderful monuments and things that Africa and African people had created. And I saw Professor Leonard Jeffries being interviewed by you, and he spoke eloquently about the history, much of the history of Africa. And by the way, Leonard Jeffries was also a presenter at the World Tribunal that we organized in 1982 on reparations for African people in this country. So that's what we're looking at. And when we met, when I say we, in this instance, I'm talking about Africans, but I'm talking about other peoples around the world. I'm talking about the people who were custodians of this land in the Americas, and I'm talking about the people who call Indians, the traditional custodians of the land and what have you, and people in Asia and various other places. When we met Europeans, Europeans were living under very hostile circumstances, horrible conditions, and under a system that was characterized as feudalism, which was the next closest thing to slavery. They were impoverished. I mean, used to be a popular reality show, perhaps it's still there, called Naked and Afraid. Well, it's literally true that the poverty of Europeans was such that often they were naked. Literally, there were communities of just naked people having nothing to wear. From the 4 short years of 1347 to 1351, half the white people on the planet Earth died from the plague. They call it the Black Plague, but it was a disease that severely impacted Europe. And of course, you can't lose half of a population in 4 short years. And then for the next 50 or more years, you had that and other plagues continue to hit Europe. You can't lose half the population in 4 years and have a viable economy. So Europe rescued itself by venturing out. When I say Europe, I'm not talking about some major conspiracy. I'm talking about some white people who are under the authority most times of the European states, the England and what have you, these institutions that they created. They left Europe looking for resources, starving, looking for resources, and they went to what's now called the Americas. They went to Africa and what have you, and they started this process of looting and killing. And most peoples of the world were not prepared for this kind of confrontation they had with Europe. It was the most barbaric kind of aggression against people. And this is the part of the process that Karl Marx referred to as primitive accumulation that brought resources to Europe and was the foundation for the emergence of the capitalist system. And central to that was Africa, the attack on Africa. And you know, like we're looking at a 600-year venture when we just limited to Europe, and what the Portuguese did in 1415, and Portugal initiated this whole transatlantic trade in Black people. So we have two things going on. You have emptying Africa of incredible resources and human resources on top of that, and then which was creating wealth for Europe. Africans who come to what is now called the Americas. The Americas have been shaped and defined by this so-called slave trade, this trade in Black people, Black bodies. The basis for the existence of some of the countries as they are now defined. I don't mean the landmass. I don't mean who was there first or anything like that, but the countries as we know them was the part of the process in the so-called slave trade, where we were creating tremendous amount of wealth and value that was leaving first Africa, leaving the places in the Americas. In fact, they brought so much resources out of Peru. Spain did brought so much resources out of South America, gold, silver from the mines of Peru, that it destroyed it created a crisis, an economic crisis in Spain itself, because it flooded the economy with all this silver. And so, I mean, by 1500, Europe had Portugal alone. Look, tiny Portugal had brought something like I think it was 700 tons of gold. By 1500, Portugal alone had taken 700 tons of gold out of Africa. So first, you have this disease-ridden place that we now know as Europe. It wasn't Europe then. It was called Christendom at different times. It was just these warring tribes of people who were fighting all the time with each other, etc. And they defined themselves primarily in relationship to each other. What changed that was the looting process that they engaged in outside of this territory. The slave trade that we're talking about, the resources they're bringing from Spain, the resources coming from Asia, the attack on China, for example, by England. That in 1841-42, the so-called Opium War, where they decided that China should sell them tea or trade tea that China had, and accept opium in return. China didn't want to do that, so England made a war with China that's called the Opium War, and they turned China into a nation of junkies. So this thing that we see now happening to us is not new. What they've done to our communities, that's been a part of the history of the development of the whole social system itself. So you have this whole one-sided relationship where what is now called Europe. Now the people who were identified as Celts and Normans and Saxons and all of this stuff, they began to achieve a single identity. And that's even the emergence of the white man as distinguished from the rest of us. They now define themselves no longer primarily in relationship to each other, but now primarily in relationship to us. This is where they achieve what people might characterize as national consciousness as white people around the world. And it's affixed to the ongoing theft of resources from Africa and from the rest of the world that grows empire stronger and stronger in Europe and deplete resources, human and material resources from Africa. I mean, you know, just, the clip that you played just a moment ago, where you had, we talked about how Leopold from Belgium went into Congo. Congo is 80 times larger. Congo is 80 times larger than Belgium. And Leopold, the Belgians went into Congo, and a part of what they were doing at one time was to force Africans in Congo to harvest rubber from them from the rubber trees. Africans did not do that willingly. They kill. The Belgians killed from 11 to 15 million people. People like to talk about the Holocaust. The Belgians alone killed something like 15 million people in Congo, and they would cut off their hands. You can Google this and you will see mountains of hands because they would cut your hands off to force people to do this, cut off ears, cut off other things like that, and kill a whole bunch of people. So this is the ruthless process that initiated. This is the birth of the capitalist system that you see Trump and before him, Obama, and before him, all the others willing to create the worst kinds of atrocities against the people of the world in order to maintain atomic weapons and everything to keep this system in place, because this system is a parasitic system. It was born parasitic at the expense of Africa and other peoples around the world. It keeps them rich and keeps the rest of us impoverished. And so
hold on one sec, Chairman. Hold on one sec.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I had to.
Yeah. Well, it does this normally. You see, it doesn't have to work at it. It does this normally. As long as that system is in place, it sucks the resources, and it does this. It can't stop doing it. The only way you stop it is overturn the damn system itself and extract yourself from this relationship with this system. That's what Nkrumah tried to tell us some time ago. And of course, you see what they did to him as a consequence, right? Uhuru. So that's the basis of it. And so you see this, you see these now European states, which I include the United States, which is a settler colony, where Europeans leave Europe and they come to somebody else's land, steal their land, and they settle there. They are settlers, just like they were settlers when they went to what is called South Africa. They're settlers just as they went into what was Palestine and changed the name to Israel. They're settlers. So this country is inhabited by white settlers who came and took this land, stole this land from the indigenous people here, and they need this relationship to maintain the wealth that they got, and they stole our labor. So they've inherited everything that we produce. They got it. They didn't inherit it. They stole it. They looted it from Africa and from African people. We say Africa is not poor. Africa is being looted. And just look at Africa. You go to Africa now. We go like in Sierra Leone, in particular places, find it real interesting because there's a train in Sierra Leone that leaves from the water, and it goes inland, and it runs 24 hours a day, and it comes from the ships empty, goes to the mines, taking up minerals, all kinds of minerals, etc., and then take those minerals to the ship. That is a project that never stops on, and the thing is miles long. I mean, and Africa is being looted. Just think about this. For the last 400 more years, they've been taking resources from Africa, and it's still there. The resources are still there, and they are being possessed by white people. Now, of course, you see increasingly other forces are there. You mentioned China early on. China is the force that's there, but so is India. So is Turkey. Anybody who's on the make, everybody's got an Africa plan, and they steal all the resources from Africa They use their Africa plan because every industrialized country, society in the world today requires the minerals of Africa in order to be successful. We have to take them back.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
Chairman,
yeah.
and in the video, you talked about how these countries, you know, when we talk about Nigeria and Cameroon, you said these are not names of our, you know, our predecessors. These are all European borders and European names that we're looking at. You talked about that on your
Right.
during the clip too. And when you said that, I started thinking about the brother in South Africa, Julius Malema.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a video that went viral of him talking about the borders and how they carved up Africa. So basically, Chairman, you're saying that the reason why Africa is underdeveloped is because we were looted. They took everything from us. You said our you know, the human and natural resources. So they took those materials and stripped Africa of those resources. So therefore, Africa is underdeveloped. And you said they're still doing it. Right now, we're hearing about the Chinese coming over, and people are calling that neo-colonialism. They said the Chinese are coming over and carving up different places in Africa. And I heard not even just Africa, Chairman. I heard they're in the Caribbean too. I heard they're all in Jamaica right now, you know, taking over Jamaica as we speak. So I guess that brings me to my next question, Chairman. How do we stop this? I mean, how do we stop the looting of Mother Africa? How do we take control of these resources? How do we liberate ourselves and advance ourselves, Chairman? How do we do that?
The neo-colonialists really are those African neo-colonial forces who have been put in power, first by Europe and increasingly by the United States. Anybody they don't like, they overthrow them, they get rid of them. If they challenge the ability of Europe and the United States to steal the resources, they murder people. I mean, it doesn't matter. In the United States, you've had Republicans and Democrats participated, both Republican Eisenhower, who was leaving office, and the Democrat Kennedy, who was coming into office, participated in murdering Patrice Lumumba in Congo and butchering him. They did that to get collectively. Johnson, the Democrat, who was supposed to be the great liberal that many Negro liberals love to hold up today, is the one who was responsible for overthrowing Kwame Nkrumah, who was just an incredible force who tried to unite all of Africa and who warned Africa and Africans of exactly what would happen if we did not unite Africa, etc. So these were forces who were killed, murdered. You're looking at people like Robert Mangaliswa Sobukwe out of South Africa, who was also a real fervent fighter for united Africa, because that's the key to our being able to fight back. But what has happened is every time we've got a Sobukwe, they've killed him and replaced him with a Mandela, who turned everything over. And you mentioned Malema, but Mandela and the ANC turned everything over to the Europeans, and they still control South Africa. You look at South Africa today, you're talking about the whites still own something like 87% of the land. They own land in what they call South Africa, that's 4 times larger than the United Kingdom and Northern Ireland combined. These are white people who own that land, and our people are starving under this neo-colonial regime of the African National Congress. So the Chinese are making inroads, but everybody's making an inroad. And the thing is that everybody's looking after their own interests, and Africa doesn't have the ability to look out for its own interests because you don't have an Africa. China has not half the resources that Africa has. But yet it is quite successful and has been extraordinarily successful over a relatively short period of time since the Chinese Revolution of 1949. But the revolution of China consolidated China as a single nation. They wiped out all of those contending forces that would disrupt the national cohesion and unity of China. In Africa, you don't have a single African voice. When the U.S. deals with China, they deal with one China. Canada, one China. France, one kind of China. When they deal with Africa, they deal with 54 or 55 different so-called Africas. And these are people who they put in place, who the bourgeoisie put in place. France, at the moment, and some of the forces who so-called leaders in Africa have seen China's emergence there. China has the fastest growing economic force on the continent of Africa in terms of any force that's in Africa today, China is the fastest growing, faster than all of the colonial powers of the past and what have you. It's contending with every colonial power that's ever been there. The U.S., that's one of the reasons U.S. is attacking China, because now China is taking those resources that normally would be coming to the United States from Africa. It's doing the same thing in Asia and what have you. The United States is on the decline. That's one of the reasons you see such desperate acts coming from the United States and from the guy who is currently the president. So the problem that we have is that we have to have a revolution, because those neo-colonial forces got to go, because they stand between the ability of African people to be united. And Africans want unity. Africans do not want these borders, and Africans want to be united with other African people around the world. I'm telling what I know. I'm telling because of the work that I do, and because we exist in this place called South Africa too. We work right there in the townships where the majority of the African people live, the workers and people who have to really scrap to try to make it from day to day. We work particularly there, but we're also in other places. We're in Uganda, we are in Ghana, we're in Sierra Leone, in various places on the continent of Africa, because Africa has to be united. But for that to happen, we got to have revolutionary forces on the ground who will lead that struggle and take Africa back from the white power, from all the imperialist forces for Africa itself. That's what we have to do. And that's the thing that's the response to China. Because many people who are talking about China are taking up a US-based line because the United States is in a contest with China. But look at what we're talking about. When they say China is invaded Africa, so what is China doing? China is replacing what? The Portuguese? China is replacing what? The British? China is replacing the Americans? Now, the fact is that Africa is under domination, economic control and domination. Up to now, it's been white power, and too many people who are upset about China not saying a damn thing about the fact that China is fighting with the French and fighting with the United States and all these other forces for its influence in Africa. We have to have the ability to fight for our Africa. That's the critical thing, and that's what the African Socialist International is all about. That's why we built this organization throughout the African world, in the Caribbean. We're in Barbados. We are in the Nassau and various other places like that. We have to pull together a single revolutionary organization of the kind that Marcus Garvey created some 100 years ago.
Ooh. Oh, so you said we have to take it back. We need to have people. We have to have people. We have to have people. Boots on the ground.
That's
like
it.
You said, speaking for all of Africa.
Yeah.
Not
and fighting for Africa.
And
it's going to take revolution. We're gonna have to fight our way out of this. And that's unfortunately many of the intellectuals who we have a lot of appreciation for in terms of a lot of the information they bring to us, but they are not prepared to say what is true. That we are in this situation now because human beings came and attacked Africa, attacked our lives, took our resources and controlled them. And the only way we're going to get out of it is by fighting. And that means that we have to build organization, build philosophy that unites African people in this process to take back our resources, destroy this capitalist social system that has undermined everything of value that is Black, that is African, etc. And that's us as human beings. It destroys your spirituality because we live under colonial domination all over the world, and colonialism is inherently violent. Whether they got a gun or whether they got a computer, the colonizer functions as a violent force in our lives. It attacks our mentality, it attacks our spirit, our culture. It steals our resources and keeps us in a constant state of starvation. It bestializes us because the distinguishing thing between humans and other animals is consciousness.
Consciousness, that's right.
And we can think about what kind of future we're going to build. We do this. But if they have a system that can put us in such a situation that the only thing that we can think of from minute to minute, day to day is how we going to eat, where we going to sleep, this kind of stuff, it reduces us to the state of other animals. It bestializes us, and that's what they've done for us. And so you look at how the imperialists have created. Look at the world they've created. They've created a world so that something like 80% of the people on the planet Earth are trying to survive off $10 or less a day. That's 80%. 50% of the people on the planet Earth are trying to survive off $2.50 or less a day. 50% of the whole people on the planet, these white people are talking about the 1%. I don't know what the 99%. I don't know what the hell they're talking about. And then if you're in Africa, you often work all day just to get a single meal. That's the state of desperation they have put us in. And we have to take it back. And so, yeah, we're going to have to fight our way out of this. They're not going to give it back to us. It's made them fat and comfortable. And when I say they, I'm talking about a whole social system that has come about as at our expense. We're going to have to fight to take it. And we're going to have, yeah.
And Chairman, I hear you. Get like we got to fight to take it, but it's like, how do you galvanize the masses? Because I'm having conversations with our people, and you got some folks saying, "Oh, I'm an American," or "Look at the white folks. They're not our enemy, Dr. Maat. Look, they're out protesting with us right now. They're in the Black Lives Matter marches with us. They're right out there with us." And so you have our people really, and I mean, it may just be the people, that I'm coming in contact with. I don't know. I know that we have these pockets of folks who are conscious, but, I'm just saying, Chairman, it's a lot of us who really don't, they really don't see European people as our open enemy. They think that they are our friends. They want to live with them. They want to work with them. They want to work for them. I had a talk with a good friend of mine. I graduated from Morgan State University with him yesterday. And he told me, he said, "Look, I'm an American." I said, "Brother, you African?" He said, "I ain't never been there. I don't have any people over there." He said, "I'm an American." So how do we galvanize those people? Or Chairman, do you just think, look, the hell with those people? Let's just galvanize the folks that are of like mind and do what we need to do. What are your thoughts on that, Chairman?
Well, the starting point always is the people of like mind, but I think the masses of people, we've seen it before. One thing that should inform us is the success of movements like the Garvey movement. I mean, everybody was in motion under Garvey. I mean, you talk about an organization that had a potential 11 million members all across the globe. This is before internet, social media, Zoom, and all of that. Garvey mobilized because Africans wanted it. It's not that Africans didn't want it any longer. It's because the U.S. government and other governments who were so frightened about what Garvey meant, the fact that he was building economic institutions that would neutralize or negate the institutions of white power and put power in the hands of African people. So they combined, and they didn't just do it themselves. There were Africans who, in this country and other places, who worked with them. W.E.B. Du Bois, this guy who's held up so highly, he actually worked with the American government to destroy the Garvey movement. There were Negroes who were calling for the government to get rid of Garvey and what have you. And so Garvey must go. That became the slogan. And this is from the sector of our own population who were so wedded. And I'm talking now about basically intellectuals. I'm not talking about masses of people. In fact, Du Bois hated Garvey in part because it was an organization that attracted so many working people and ordinary Black people, as opposed to the talented 10th, this highly educated, prestigious sector that he felt should be providing leadership for us. And so they combined with the United States government and they destroyed the Garvey movement. But the point I'm making is that it took that effort, it took the intervention of the United States government to stop this natural trajectory of Black people toward greater unity. And even when you look at what's going on now, we've seen it, there are people in prison now. They've been in prison sometimes for 50 years because the masses of Black people in this country were united with the idea of fighting against colonialism. That old time at civil rights, love your enemy, kiss your enemies, etc. That stuff was being made passé. Malcolm X was one of the fundamental forces, ideological forces that helped to shape our consciousness and move things. And then revolutionary movements were breaking out. We had actually defeated the United States government ideologically and politically in this country. And the United States government moved on us the only way it could, militarily. It killed, destroyed, did horrible things to people. And there are Africans right now who are in prison, been there for 50 years or more, like Sundiata Acoli, who was with Assata when the government tried to kill her. And there are others, who, in addition to Sundiata, some names you will know, some are not as well known as that. And that's what crushed the movement. And now in its place, you had these other lick spitters who, one of the reasons, and I know one of the reasons that the U.S. government brags about right now that the only black congressman who's ever been at the rotunda at the Capitol is because he was saying, love your enemy, go out and vote, and that's the way you deal with stuff. They want to put that forward as the way, as the solution. That's why this silly slogan, empty, blind slogan, Black Lives Matter, what the hell does that mean? You can get the, anybody can say that. And everybody has said it. You got Joe Biden saying it. Joe Biden at John Lewis' coffin, the photo up for his presidential aspiration. You got the whole house, the congressional house on one knee with kente cloth on, Black Lives Matter. Anybody can say Black Lives Matter, but they can't say down with U.S. colonialism. They can't say Africa for Africans. They can't say Black people unite, Black power. They can't say that. You won't hear Biden say that. You hear him say Black Lives Matter because it doesn't mean anything. What the hell is Black Lives Matter? How does that inform you about anything? It doesn't mean anything. CNN says Black Lives Matter. Obama said Black Lives Matter. Even as he was putting us in the dozen in Chicago, or since he put us in the dozen in Chicago with one of his speech, the only speech he made about Black people, well, not the only one, but the most significant one was to talk about how African fathers are no good and stuff. He didn't say they're no good because they're in prison. And didn't say, this kind of stuff. But the point that I'm making is that that there's been a war made to destroy, and those people in prison now are the evidence of the fact that the United States, that Black people do want to be together. Black people do want to end colonialism. Black people do want to be united, and Black people want to have an African identity. And that's the work that we do. And so we do it among the mass of the people. And we in struggle even in these mobilizations. There have been millions, thousands of people. Millions of people who've been involved in demonstrations and stuff around this country. Some people don't know exactly what that means because there are a lot of white people there too. But the thing is that Africans are colonized. Everybody got a beef with the United States. Just because you got a beef don't mean that you're on the same side that I'm on. I heard this old thing that said that this saying that's supposed to be my enemy's enemy is my friend. That's not always the truth. You understand? Because the majority of white people can live and survive with some kind of tinkering with the system. This system can only survive and prosper at the expense of African people. We got to get rid of the monster. There's no fixing this thing for us. Now, that's not to say, and I'm not one who will say, dismiss any solidarity from white people or anything like that. What I am saying that white people who are in solidarity have to be in solidarity in the struggle against colonialism. They have to fight against white power. They can unite with me if they're fighting against white power under my leadership. That's the context with which I can have that. It makes sense to do that. I mean, other peoples have been able to do that, recognizing that we command our own struggle and recognizing what it is that we're fighting for. But if you're fighting against this concept called racism, how can anybody even unite with that? You're fighting against racism. What does that mean? You're fighting to make white people like you. Say, I can see you now trying to engage with oppressors, with people who are trying to fight against the United States. I want you to unite with me to make white people like me, which is essentially what the anti-racism movement is about. We got to fight against colonialism. Racism is simply the ideological foundation of the capitalist colonialist system. It is that which informs white people to carry out the colonial mission of keeping African people in our place and oppressed. That's the philosophy. That's the ideology. It is founded on slavery and colonialism. We got to destroy slavery and colonialism and negate the significance of the philosophy. Somebody said, I think it was Henry Kissinger, who said that power is an aphrodisiac. So if you want white people to like you, get some power.
You know who else?
They ain't like Chinese, but they don't mess with China. Get some power.
Chairman, you know who else said that? Dr. Amos Wilson in his book Blueprint for Black Power.
Yes.
That's what he said. That's some
power.
It.
That's the aphrodisiac. You can find love all places in the world once you get power. And what you see is that many people around the world, many people in the 1960s, all around the world saw Black people in the United States and other places, and then significantly in the United States, as representing the future of humanity. Because we were struggling and we were in the heart of this monstrosity that was oppressing the peoples of the world. In Vietnam, one of the reasons the U.S. had to come out of Vietnam, because they couldn't fight in Vietnam and fight us in Detroit at the same time. And they couldn't fight in Vietnam and fight us in New Jersey and Newark at the same time, because they had this massive mobilization of Black people fighting against colonialism. They weren't saying Black Lives Matter, hands up, don't shoot, this kind of nonsense. The movement had matured beyond that. Somebody's trying to take us back to that old time of civil rights stuff, when we should be advancing the struggle, demanding what we need, which is an end to this relationship with colonial white power. America is a settler state, and it's in a state of decline. Now, everybody in the world can see this thing going down. We cannot make the mistake of seeing its crisis as our crisis. I want to deepen the crisis of American imperialism, because that's what it's going to take to free our people. And that's what I'm interested in, our people. The hell with the success of America. America's success come at our expense. Yeah. Fire! Fire!
Fire! Family, share this video right now. And I kept putting it in the chat. Family, go to your social media page right now. I don't know if you're on Facebook, wherever. If you have a Facebook, or Instagram, or Twitter, share this video. The chairman is dropping a lot of information, a lot of powerful information. And so, family, let's get this information out. If you haven't thumbed up the video, head on over to YouTube, thumb up the video. Also, if you have not subscribed to my channel, because I do see that there's some folks watching from Facebook. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, head on over to YouTube. In the search engine, type in dr.maat. Subscribe to my channel, click the notification bell so that anytime I go live, you will be notified. And while you're over there, thumb up this video, family, and leave a comment for the chairman, okay? Because he's dropping a lot of jewels tonight. Chairman, I know that I only have about 12 more minutes with you, and I don't want to let you go, but I know I have to let you go. But I want to move into your organization.
Dr. Maat, may I just say this?
Yes,
please?
sir. Yes, sir.
Because, I have been asked many times when I've traveled various places around the world, people ask me and say, well, what happened to the Black movement? What happened to the Black struggle? Because they remember the 60s. And sometimes I talk to younger people who think history just began with their emergent consciousness. And they say things like, we used to struggle and we, just got a new generation changed or something like that. But it's not that. I mean, this government murdered people. This government crushed the revolutionary movement. It killed us. It killed us. It killed Malcolm. It killed King. It killed, in one fell swoop, they killed something like in 1968 alone, 30 members of the Black Panther Party. They arrested, more than 300 members. They killed the co-founder of the African People's Socialist Party. They killed people, and this is what happened to the movement. It's not like people changed their minds and then they killed them. And then what they did was they put drugs in our community. Crack cocaine was put in our communities. And the CIA, people, it's almost common knowledge now that the CIA did this, that somebody went into a laboratory and created this thing that they call crack cocaine. It's a derivative of cocaine, and they put it in our community. They use it, killing two birds with one stone. They were killing people in Vietnam to try to crush that revolution on the one hand, and then while they were in that era, they call it Golden Triangle, they would bring in the drugs to this country. And first heroin, and then after the Vietnamese thing, after the Sandinistas rose up in Nicaragua, they went to South America where the cocaine is centered. And then they began Africans lost our appetite for heroin. Suddenly, now it's cocaine. So I'm just saying that they committed a horrible crime and offense against us. And that's part of the reason we engage right now in the struggle that we're in, the state of the struggle right now. And I just think it's really important because you're talking about the largest prison population in the world, larger than China. China got 1 billion people, and this country has 1 million more people and has it has 1 million more people in prison than China. There are more Africans in prison in this country than there are people in Djibouti, than there are people in West Africa, Equatorial Guinea. There are more Africans in prison. This is what we're looking at. This is a vicious social system. It's a vicious country when it comes to African people. There's no salvation for the system, and we have no future with it. So I just think I just want to say that, Sister Dr. Maat, and go ahead and move it forward, because you can, yeah.
No, Chairman. I wanted you. I mean, you know, give us all you can. Give us all you can, Chairman. You know, I appreciate that. I just you got my wheels turning over here. I know we were moving it forward, but family, I'm telling you, please share this video. I can't say it enough. And peace and love to my French brothers and sisters. They are in the building. Hotep to my French Kemites, my French speaking brothers and sisters. I see you all through the chat room. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is my family from brother Omali Mukasi's platform. He has a beautiful platform, Chairman. And I definitely want to pass your information. I'll hook up with your administrator and to connect them to. He has a French speaking platform where he brings on English speakers, powerful English speakers, and he has a translator so that we can get this information out there to our French brothers and sisters. So I applaud what that brother is doing, and he's building a beautiful platform. So Chairman, let's get into your organization. I know we have about 8 minutes left, but can you tell us the name of your organization, what your mission is? You know, what are you all trying to accomplish, and how can we support you?
The name of the organization is the African People's Socialist Party. And we are known as the African Socialist International because it's an international party. But wherever we are located, we are the African People's Socialist Party. We are the African People's Socialist Party USA, African People's Socialist Party Bahamas, African People's Socialist Party, and various other places where we're located. And the objective is to establish professional revolutionaries, African people who want freedom, who are prepared to do everything that it takes to win our liberation, to put professional revolutionaries down every place African people are living, so that our movement will have a strategic character no matter where it's located. So our people in Haiti are not fighting by themselves, but they are part of a whole movement. So this whole thing has a strategic character. We have created what we call the Uhuru movement. And of course, we took the word Uhuru, the slogan, from the Kenyan Land Freedom Army called Mau Mau, who fought the British almost to a standstill. The British committed horrendous acts, killed more than 300,000 African people in Kenya, and initiated some of the most significant counterinsurgents tactics against us. The British, there were some court hearings within, I think, about 6-7 years ago in England, where people who were tortured by the British, where they talked about a young woman who I think may have been 16 years old, and the British had troops had thrown her to the ground on her back, and one troop stood on her legs with his boots on one leg and another with another leg with his boots, and they took a bottle of scalding hot water and kicked it into her vagina. I'm just saying this as part of what they do to us and what they have done to us. And they talked about how in the fight against the Kenyan Land Freedom Army, or Mau Mau, they would take women and put snakes, and they would put banana leaves in their vaginas, and they would do the same thing to the anuses of African men. This is what the tea-sipping, genteel British did to us, you know, there. So we are organizing everywhere, Africans everywhere. We have to break out of this situation, etc. So the African Socialist International, depending on where we're located, we're the African People's Socialist Party, taking the name of the so-called national entity where we are. We have, in the process of struggle, we've created what we call dual and contending power. The objective is to create our own separate power that is not just a power that's parallel, but the objective is to contend with the power that colonialism have on our lives. So we've created economic institutions. We have something like 50 some odd economic institutions. We have a furniture store in Oakland, a furniture store in Philadelphia. They're closed now because of the pandemic, or they've been affected seriously by the pandemic. We have other kinds of institutions. We have food producing entities and things like that, because the objective is to negate the influence, economic influence of the oppressors by creating our own as a part of the contest. We've got have become the Black Power Blueprint in St. Louis. We were in St. Louis subsequent to Ferguson. And you saw in St. Louis the all kinds of Soros, millions and millions of dollars came in there to mislead and misdirect the movement. That's where the whole Black Lives Matter thing came out of that. But we have stayed there, and we have created the Black Power Blueprint. We are rehabilitating much of North St. Louis. We are doing this. We are putting the people into this process of rehabilitating. We're getting properties. We're creating actual enterprises there for the benefit of the people. So that's part of what it is that we're doing. We are participating in the Black is Back Coalition for Social Justice, Peace, and Reparations. We played a big role in pulling that together. It's an organization consisting of 15 different organizations. And the thing is that we have done this to try to create a coherent movement of Black people in this country. This is 11 years old. And we have a conference that's coming up in August to free Black political prisoners and to fight for Black power. And that's August 15th and 16th. And people should be prepared to come to blackisbackcoalition.org so that you can find out everything you can about that. So, I mean, we are quite busy organization, and there's a lot to be said. And I broke your stride by stopping you when you initially was going to ask me about this question. But I want to say we have a French platform too, that the African who is the Secretary General of the African Socialist International, who's from Congo, lives now in England, speaks Lingala, French, speaks English and what have you. And so we have a platform there, and you can, I think it might be APSP France or something like that, African People's Socialist Party France. So we are in various places doing work. We have regular events. We have created a COVID-19, how do we characterize it? People's War Commission that goes out in our communities, putting up posters, going door to door, talking to people, helping people understand how to deal with this virus because they're not getting good information from any other sources. We're the African People's Socialist Party. We believe in revolution. We have determined Black people must be free. We have to have control of our own destiny. We have determined that no people ever should control us ever again. We have to make our own freedom, unite our Africa. The critical question is the liberation, unification of Africa and African people globally. That's our mission. That's the thing that we're working on all the time. And I really appreciate you giving us an opportunity to talk about it.
Absolutely, Chairman. I thank you from the bottom of my heart, for just giving us this information. Chairman, I'm looking in the chat room, and Brother Church, Artemis Church, he said, how can I get engaged with your organization? I am in California. Good.
We're in California too. Go to apspuhuru.org, apspuhuru.org, or you can call us at 727-914-3617. And people who are interested in our most amazing Black Power Blueprint project can simply go to blackpowerblueprint.org. You're going to find Dr. Maat. You should go there. It's in blackpowerblueprint.org. You mentioned Amos Wilson. Of course, that's the name. I think he put out something called Black Power Blueprint, right?
Yeah. Blueprint for Black Power.
Yeah. So this is a genuine, live, dynamic economic program that we involved in, like I said, transforming the whole north of St. Louis. But we have other economic institutions every place, so check us out. And the brother in California, did he say where he is in California?
Okay, Brother Church, tell me in the chat room, where are you in California? Real quick, brother, because we're getting ready to close. So where are you in California, brother?
Well, just go to apspuhuru.org. You'll find us. We'll find you. Go to apspuhuru.org, and you can connect with us in California. We're in San Diego. We're in Oakland. We're in Los Angeles, in those places in particular, and growing.
All right. He didn't respond yet, or maybe it's maybe he's out of there. But thank you so much, Chairman, for coming on the platform, Chairman, and getting this information out. I'm definitely going to go check out the, you said it's not called Blueprint for Black Power.
It's Black Power Blueprint.
Black Power Blueprint.
Yes. Go there.
Yes. I'm going to definitely check it out. And family, I see that my French speaking brothers and sisters in the building. When we say uhuru, we're saying freedom. It means freedom in Swahili. When you hear us say Bibi Fahode, we're saying African liberation, okay? So I know a lot of the French-speaking brothers and sisters, they say Hotep. But brothers and sisters, you'll hear us say uhuru, we're saying freedom. Bibi Fahode, we're saying African liberation.
Bibi Fahode, yes.
So
relate to Africa, means Africa is our land, okay?
Look, you just taught me something else, Baba.
Uhuru.
Uhuru.
Thank you so
Chairman.
much, Dr. Maat.
Thank you so much, Chairman. So I'm gonna make some announcements, but and Chairman, before we go, what is your Cash App or PayPal information? Do you have that available, just in case some folks who are watching the show might say, "Hey, let me donate to the chairman and his organization"? Do you have that information?
I don't, but if you go to blackpowerblueprint.org, if you go to apspuhuru.org, you can get that information.
All right, Chairman. What I'll do is once this video loads and I get the information from, because I've been in touch with your administrator.
Right, she has all that.
Absolutely. So once this video loads on YouTube, I'll get the information from her and I'll put like a link underneath the video. So if people want to donate, they can.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Chairman. I appreciate you coming through. Uhuru, Chairman. Uhuru. Peace and love. Family, we have tomorrow with us Professor James Smalls. Professor James Smalls is coming on tomorrow at 8:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So family, be sure to tune in tomorrow. If you have not subscribed to my channel, please subscribe to my channel. All right, just come on over to dr.maat.msu, hit the subscribe button and also hit the notification bell so that as soon as I go live, you will be notified. All right. Thank you for joining us tonight. Peace and Black Power.